Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ask Ken Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have Kevin Hughes of Cavalli Channeling. He's going to be hosting and moderating today. Go ahead and take it away, Kevin. How would you like to start?
Well, I'm going to do that to start just to make myself bigger.
All yours, man. All yours.
No, let's go this way. So what we want to do, folks, is this is your show. You get to ask the questions. You get to hear the answers. You get to direct what we talk about. I have the ability to see chat from all the different sources. So whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Twitter, or whether you're on YouTube, you can reply. I will see the questions. I will ask Ken. Ken will then take it from there. And of course, using his guides. What else? Let me rephrase that, Ken. I'm going to ask you. This is going to be your first question. How are you going to answer the questions? Because I'm getting it's not just your guides. What else are you doing?
Yeah, good point, Kevin. So Kevin is a graduate of my channeling programs. I teach people how to channel for a living. This is what I do, like full time, all the time, every time, is teach people how to channel. And so Kevin, when he goes like, I'm getting this, I'm getting that, that's what he's doing. He's channeling. So I teach people. Eventually, I want to get all my students where they channel live in the moment on the spot. So those of you who are watching right now, just leave a comment. Just say hi. Anyways, just let's see if the chat part's working, and just say hi. Anyways.
Hi,
So
and where are you from?
yeah, and where you're from. Good point.
Yeah. And when you're
Uh,
asking a question, please put in where you're from so I can give you a shout out. We want to
yeah.
see how far our reach can possibly be.
And what I do is when I channel, like I'm always, of course, my own guides. So right now, over the years, I've been kind of tracking how many guides people have. Most people have somewhere between 3 to 5 spirit guides during any one season of their life. Some have two, some have six, but in general, it's that 3 to 5 kind of range. Right now, I have 3 spirit guides. So I just had a new one a few weeks ago. So yay! What do we do when we get a new guide, Kevin? We
Yay!
celebrate. That's right. That's right.
So, sorry, how many guys do you have now?
Right now, three
Three.
spirit guides. Yeah, 2 males and a female. So that's where I'll be getting the majority of the information from. And then, of course, in my later workshops, my expert channeling level 3, I teach people how to channel things like fairies, sprites, dragons, angels, archangels, things like that. Yeah, celebrate, says Carol. So, anyways, yeah, that's. I might also be getting the answers from those sources as well. I might also be getting it from whoever's asking the question, their guides. Yeah, there's lots of good places. But I always, one of the biggest things I emphasize when I train and teach my students is where are you getting the information from? Is it from a valid source? Is it a legitimate source? Are they of the light? All those things. Because we want to make sure that wherever we're channeling, whatever we're doing, we're working in the light, we're getting information from sources of the light. Super, super, super important.
It is. And that was one of the biggest things Ken taught me when I first started channeling is check to see where you're getting that from. And it's made such a difference as I kind of have grown and still am growing in this new community, I'll call it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
So we have Carol. I'm going to mess up your last name, Carol Ladowick from Morningville, Alberta. We have Christina Paul from Calgary, Alberta, of course. Sharon Lorraine. She didn't say where she's from. Where are you from, Sharon? Dawn Hobbs, all the way from Ontario. And we have Irene Irwin from Airdrie.
Yeah, Airdrie, Alberta, which is where Kevin is located. Yeah.
Ken used to be here. Ken now is residing in
Canmore, Alberta. So yes, the mountains in the Rocky Mountains in Canada.
Awesome. And Sharon is from Kamloops.
So go ahead and ask your questions. Anyone, you're more than welcome to just ask them in the chat. So put right in there, like, what do you want to know about spirituality? What do you want to know about souls? What do you want to know about anything to do? Really anything, really. This isn't the format where we're going to do like personal stuff, like, oh, I want a reading on like my loved one who passed away, or am I going to, meet the man of my dreams? Stuff like that's a different format. So
I have a question.
I have a place for that, and that's the Ask Ken show, where
No.
the readings with Ken's mentees. That's where I'll have like one of my students on, where together we'll collaborate and answer personal questions that are more personal. But this is more anything and everything to do with spirituality, or if you have just want questions about myself or business or just things like that. Go ahead, Kevin.
Can you give me the winning lottery numbers?
Yeah, it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's
Make
not
sure you
enough.
write those down.
That's
And
not enough
by the way,
numbers.
when you win, I'm your best friend, so you have to share with me, okay?
You're not my friend. Who told you this?
Whether I am or not, as long as you give me some of the lottery winnings, then that works for you.
That's hilarious. Okay, I'm gonna just let's start. Let's get into this. We're gonna probably go an hour.
Yep. So we stick to 1 hour pretty solid. So hurry
Cool.
up, get your questions in, because we like to keep things tight, and it finishes at 8 p.m. Mountain Time. So 7
Well,
to 8.
let's jump in. First question is from Christina Paul. She wants to know how to tap into your past lives.
Yeah. So there's a couple methods that I've developed over the years. So I was trained by a Zen master on how to do past life regressions, things like that. And once I took that training, I was like started implementing it right away. One of the things I really suggest to my students is, as soon as you take my trainings, my workshops, implement it right away as soon as you can. Don't wait a week or three, because I don't know about you, but for me that usually doesn't happen. So that's what I did when I learned it. So the way that I do it is because I can do like self regression on myself, where I can take myself into past lives myself, and that's where I started. I was tracking like hundreds and hundreds of lives, past lives and stuff like that I had lived, and I also and then I would be doing it with my students, and now it's actually in my channeling level 1 curriculum. We use it, and it's actually serves multiple purposes as to what it serves. Like, it helps you to understand, oh, reincarnation is actually real, and which it really is, and also gives us some context of like life and death and how all that works, that we don't really die. We just transition from 3D physical form to that form. So if there's ever a death in that person's life later on, at some point, hopefully they have that kind of bigger picture of what's really happening, and or if they're kind of, when we're all gonna pass away, die, whatever, cross over. So when that day does eventually come, we're not this whole fear of death, which in Western society is prevalent. A lot of people have this fear of death, and it really is very detrimental. Whereas some of the other Eastern cultures, where they'll be like, oh yeah, it's a celebration, they're transitioning, they understand it. So that's why this past life is really important. So how I do it is I'll sit somewhere quiet, no noise, no nothing. And then what I'll do is I'll focus in, and your soul is where the past lives, the information resides. So that's where that's stored, is in your soul. And so what I do is I like to focus down. It's kind of in your sternum area. So it's like right here in this in-between part. So it's your heart chakra, and then there's a solar plexus chakra. It's like right in between where your two rib bones, the bottom of your rib bones meet. And that's called the seat of the soul, or the epicenter of where your soul resides. So that's where I like to focus on when I'm doing past life regression on myself. And then what I do is I focus in on my soul, I tune into it, I connect with it really strong, and then I just allow my soul to take me to whichever past life it wants to present to myself. So then I start to figure out things like, what country or continent am I on? What era is it from? Am I male, female? All those kinds of cool things. So really practical, really easy. It's just a matter of really trusting. Your soul knows this information. It's a memory bank. So just go with it. Just feel into it. I've also found that if you're still unsure, allow someone like me to take you through it at least once or twice to really get the feel of it, and then you can do it on your own. And I do recommend it. It's pretty cool. It's pretty wild. The only caution I have about that is to try to use it for good purposes, because I know when I first did it, I was always looking at the suffering and the pain and the struggle, which was helpful because it helped me to heal a lot of those things. Like, I had there was many past lives where I was a female and I had abuses and things like that. And so in this lifetime, it actually affected me whenever this would come up with either me or my female clients. And so I had to do a lot of healing around that. And now it's really helped me now because that's clear. So, but also you can go into your past lives to retrieve good positive information, which how cool is that, right?
And you know what? In my opinion, past lives shouldn't be all teary-eyed and woe is me. A lot of
Yeah,
times it's like, oh crap, did I really do that?
yeah.
It's supposed to be fun.
And
I had a
like,
really smart guy tell me once that this is all supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be all.
yeah. So my slogan is spirituality is meant to be fun. Woo, woo. Yeah, and that's what it is. It's supposed to be fun. And I do when I do my past life, take my students through past life regression in channeling level one, my channeling level one workshop. What I do is I purposely have them go back to a positive past life
Yes,
to and why is their soul bringing them to this lifetime, this positive lifetime? What do they want them to bring back to forward to this present lifetime and know about that, which is really cool.
it is
So,
very cool.
so those
Okay,
of you
next.
who are just tuning in, I just wanted to say, make sure you write in the comments, say hello, where you're from, and also if you have any questions on spirituality or just to myself or whatever, go ahead and comment in there right now. And welcome everyone.
Okay, this one's an interesting question because I'm going to ask it how it's written, and Ken, you can kind of clarify it. I think it might need it. Is it possible to meet your primary guide only after 3 years of channeling? I have channeled for 3 years and channeled other guides.
Mm,
This is from Carol Latowick.
that'll work. Yeah.
Latowick.
Um, Let me say it a different way. So basically, it's possible. So just to kind of give some context, in general, this is what I've found is you have one primary guide and then multiple secondary guides. So like I said earlier, is most people have 3 to 5 spirit guides. Some have 2, some have 6. So usually one of those guides is a primary guide and then multiple secondaries. What I get from you specifically, Carol, is that guide has always been there, but in a
Yeah.
different capacity. So this is a little bit more complex. And I teach this later in my workshops, is there's what's called a visiting guide. So they're not a primary guide and not a secondary guide. And for you specifically, Carol, what I'm getting is that this was actually a visiting guide that wasn't a primary or secondary for a few years, and then has changed from a visiting guide basically is one that comes and goes, but isn't really like in spirituality. Things are very rarely always like this or never like that. It's not always like black and white. So this is a case where this is a visiting guide, and then it changed from a visiting guide to a primary guide, and it was there the whole time, but it was a little bit more difficult. Visiting guides are a little bit more difficult to pick up on because they're not always there, but now that it's a primary guide, it's like really prevalent. And so your guides can change from being a secondary guide to a primary, or a primary guide to a secondary, or to a visiting guide, which isn't as common.
Yeah.
However, um, yeah, that's what I'm getting is in your case, that's what happened there. It's a really
Awesome.
good question. A little bit more sophisticated. That's advanced stuff,
Now,
but
this is one that is
more than
one of
happy to
those
ask.
general questions. And I wasn't going to ask it at first, but I'm going to ask it. Who made the pyramids in Egypt?
So, um, one of the things that I do in channeling level one on purpose is I have people go through a past life regression where they've incarnated on not just this planet, planet Earth, also where they've incarnated on another planet, and so that they've actually get to experience, oh yeah, I have actually incarnated on another planet. And one of the biggest purposes and reasons for that is because people will go, okay, yeah, maybe I've had a past life on this planet, yeah, I can wrap my head around that. But then when they experience the past life on another planet, they're like, oh my goodness, like I've incarnated on other planets too, how cool is that? Like that's like mind blowing. And the reason, there's multiple reasons why I do that, is one is because your spirit guides could be present themselves in alien form or basically non-human form. But the other reason is because I want you to know that you've actually incarnated on other planets as well. So basically, welcome everyone. We're all basically aliens among us. Yes, we are. Most my experience has been pretty much everyone has incarnated on other planets. And so even right now, when I check, I keep getting that it was basically the pyramids were built with the assistance of extraterrestrials.
Yes.
And that's I keep getting that over and over again, and even right now when I'm checking right now. And so the thing though I want to make it very clear is that um, we are basically the aliens. Like us humans, we have all incarnated on other planets, and extraterrestrial race has helped and assisted in the building of the pyramids.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Um, okay, this is a personal one just for you, Ken.
Yeah.
You've tapped into many of your past lives in the past, I take it.
Yeah.
Have you ever been a famous person in a past life? You know what? How long have I known you? And I've never asked you this question yet. I remember it was either level 1 or level 2 that I took with you. That was something you had us check.
So I have been a famous person more than once. However, I'm not going to disclose that, and here's the reasons why. Because I've actually given this a lot of thought and had many discussions with many people, basically who are super in tune, like myself, my students that have really advanced, and we've had these discussions over time. And basically, the conclusion that I keep coming back to over and over, that my soul keeps agreeing with, and my guides and my higher self, is that yes, I've had these famous experiences or lifetimes, and but who am I today? Who am I in this lifetime? And this is what really matters. And again, I've seen people go to extremes on this where they're like, oh, I was this famous person in this past lifetime, and then it goes to their head, and there's this thing called spiritual ego out there now, like where people like let it get to their head. And I don't play those games. I'm not into that. I could really care less about who I was or wasn't in past lifetimes to do with celebrity status or famous and all that, because what really matters is who I am right now in this present moment in this current lifetime, and that's what really really matters. But yes, I've been many of famous people throughout history, documented all that fun stuff. It's really
Awesome.
irrelevant to me. Doesn't
Yes.
really matter.
It doesn't. I mean, it's who you are today
Yeah.
in the now.
Yeah. And also I look at it like some people have this weird idea about they think that evolution is linear. They like there's this really great movie out there called Cloud Atlas where these characters they are different people in different lifetimes, and some of the lifetimes in that movie they're like a victim, and sometimes they're the perpetrator, and sometimes they're the rescuer and things like that, and throughout history. And I remember telling someone about that lifetime or about that movie, and they're like, oh, I don't like that movie. They're like, I'm like, well, why not? Well, because I think that we all like evolve in this better every lifetime. We get better and healthier and all that. I'm like, who says that? Like, who, you know? And it's like there's been many of lifetimes when I've been the what's that one where they chop the heads off? You know,
Executioner.
yeah, stuff like that. So
Yes.
and I own it, and I have been, and I know that. But at this lifetime, I choose to be. I want to what I want. My goal for this lifetime, and this is part of the evolution and ascension process. My goal in this lifetime is to try to be and see how much I can evolve as much as possible this lifetime, hoping that when I come back in the next lifetime, I will continue on with that. Is there any guarantee of that? No. There's a lot of factors in play. There's Akashic record stuff, contracts, deals, agreements that I make on a soul level when I incarnate. What part of the planet I might incarnate on? I might, incarnate in a super impoverished country and die before I'm 5 years old. Like, and that's
Yes.
happened, or have to steal for a living just to eat food. And, there's a lot of variables in there. And to think that every single lifetime is, don't get me wrong, you cannot not evolve. I want to
Yes.
make that very clear. You cannot not evolve. You have to evolve no matter what. However, which way you evolve is from lifetime to lifetime can go like this. It's not always like straight up and nice and beautifully linear. So,
A question I get a lot when I do my sessions with my clients is, or a comment people will make is, wow, you have such a great gift, and it bugs me when I hear it because I took Ken's course when I turned 55 years old. What did I do with that gift before? Can, can anybody channel?
Pretty much, yes. I'm
Yes.
going to say yes. I could
Elaborate.
confidently say, like, I get people from all over. Let me give you an example. Like, I'm online now. I do my workshops online. I have for several years, since yeah, several years now, about 5 6 years. Before though, is what I would do is I would do in person workshops, and I would fill up a room with 20, 30, even 50 people who've never channeled before, and it would be a 2 hour training and teaching on how to teach people how to channel their guides. And by the end of that 2 hours, everyone would be channeling like no problem,
Exactly.
and they're off to the races. So sometimes there are a little bit of tweaks that need to be done for very rare, not that often. Most people are ready to go. Most people have been doing it all their lives. They just don't know that they've been doing it, or they've kind of been doing it intermittently. What I do is I teach people how to do it intentionally on purpose, so they actually know what they're doing, and then take their abilities way beyond anything they can imagine. However, there are certain people where every once in a while I come across someone who just needs a little bit of tweaking, like a little bit of stuff to do with their connections with their guides, or maybe their higher self or their upper chakras. I would be at an expo sometimes, and I would like someone would sign up for a channeling session with me, and then I would like I have the ability to be able to scan people, and I teach that in my channeling level 3 expert level. It's called medical mediumship. And then I just check. I'm like, oh, can I just do some clearing on you? And I'll go over to them, and I'll use Reiki energy, for example, or bioenergy, and I'll just clear their upper chakras. And it takes me 1 to 2 minutes as they're sitting there waiting, and then I'm like, okay, you're good to go. Let's. Then I sit down and we start channeling, and they're off to the races. So
That's awesome.
sometimes little tweaks like that, and it doesn't have to be in person. Like I do this remotely as well during my one-on-one channeling sessions, because
Yeah,
I'll just take a quick glimpse to make sure that they're all ready to go, and 99% of people are. And if they're not, then I just do the quick tweaks and tune-ups, and then they're off to the races.
that is just
So
awesome.
really good question, and that's being fully transparent. Like I don't, you know, try to pull the wool over someone's eyes and say, oh yeah, everyone can channel. And I wish that was true. There are the odd exceptions, and those exceptions I know how to deal with them through the modalities that I've developed and also been trained in over the years.
So Natasha Willoughby,
Yeah.
she has a question.
Oh, she's from Airdrie.
She's from Airdrie, Alberta.
Yeah.
She said she wasn't. I messaged her before, and she said she wasn't going to be here, but she posted a question. What is the most important piece of advice for people who are channeling other souls, angels, AA? So I'm going to say archangels,
Yeah.
etc. So, what is your most important piece of advice for people who are channeling other souls, angels, and archangels?
Really good question. Really advanced question. You think it would be a simple, easy answer, and there's two things in this answer. Um, the number one most important thing is get really good at channeling yourself and your spirit guides first, because
Yes.
when you get really good at channeling yourself, like your soul, your higher self, and your spirit guides, then you know that that source is really solid, really good, and then what you can do, that they're of the light, and they have your highest and greatest good in mind and intention and all that. They're of the light, all that. Then that's why I do that in channeling level 1. Then in channeling level 2 and 3 is where I teach you to channel other kinds of souls, other kinds of beings, like archangels, dragons, fairies, and different kinds of souls, and all stuff like that. Then what I do is, when I train my students, I say, okay, before you do anything outside of you, any kind of channeling outside of you, always, always, always have one of your spirit guides with you. And then I ask them why. Why do you want to do this? Well, for protection, for guidance, to make sure, because that you work in the light, they're going to make sure that you're not going in a direction that you shouldn't be when you're working with these different souls or beings and things like that. So first thing I get them to do is I go, okay, where is one of your guides around you? Oh, right here. Okay, which guide is it? By then they already know who their guides are. And then I go, good. Now, you're going to be working with your guide as you're channeling someone else's loved one, as you're channeling another person's spirit guide, as you're channeling a being like an angel, an archangel, because they might not be an angel or archangel. So your guide will be able to verify who you're actually working with. And sprites, fairies, dragons, crystal divas, things like that. They'll also be able to verify that you're only doing things that are in your highest and greatest good. And that's why you always have them there kind of mentoring you, is what I call it. Like they're kind of like, I'm like the potty one, and they're like the guru, the guide, right? So they're kind
Yeah.
of making sure they can see things from their vantage point that we might not be able to, because they reside in the astral realm. So they're going to be observing kind of things from a higher perspective to keep us safe, to make sure we're on the right track, that we're doing things only on our highest and greatest good. It's a
That's
really good
awesome.
question. Get really good at channeling yourself, your soul, your higher self, and your spirit guides. And then you can focus on the higher, more advanced stuff like channeling outside of you.
Awesome answer. Ruben Mandingo, all the way from Brazil,
Whoop, whoop. Brazil's in the house.
has a real easy question. Did you ever watch Kid Bengala? I've never heard of it.
No,
No.
I wish.
Okay, we have our homework cut out for us.
What about it? Is it a movie or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me know
I'm
what it
hoping
is.
good.
So I'd
Sounds
love
good.
to.
I get good feelings when I feel into it. I'm like, ooh, I don't know what it
Yeah,
is, but I like it.
I like it.
Maybe write
Our
that down, Kevin. Well, after you ask the next question, then I'll have
Kid
to look it up.
Bengala. Armanda Amaro from Soyuz just says, "Hi, Ken."
Hi, Amanda.
What does we always hear this question? Follow your intuition. What does it mean?
Great question. I love this question. I've been
Before you answer, Ken, sorry, before
yeah.
you answer, if you're just joining us, folks, in the chat, please type in your question. Let us know where you're from. And Ken, we have still about a half hour to go. Ken has lots of time to answer other questions. So type it in. I will go through them and ask them. Sorry, Ken.
Yeah. And make sure you mention where you're from. We want to say hi and a shout out to you. So wherever
Yes.
you're from, and also too, after this, we're going to be doing this. We're doing this Ask Ken show monthly. So it's the fourth Wednesday of every month.
That's
And
correct.
in the event on Facebook, you're welcome to go ahead and put in your comment or your questions, and then we can have it preloaded so that we're like, oh yeah, okay, that's a good one, and then we can ask it the next time around. So after this, if you think of things, because that always happens to me, I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be a good question to ask Ken. That would be a good question. So intuition. Let's get to that question. That's a
Yes.
really good question. Over the years, I've been doing this since 2004, and over the years, I keep hearing people say, "Oh, follow your intuition, follow your intuition." But every time I hear that, I mean, that means nothing to me. Like, what does that mean? Like, how do I do? What is that? Like, what does follow your intuition mean? Oh, well, follow your gut, whatever. I'm like, okay, sure, I guess. Like, it doesn't really make sense. So what I've been able to do over the decades, basically, is I've been able to dissect and differentiate between what actual intuition means. So, does everyone want to know the difference between instinct and intuition?
Yes.
So first of all, your instinct is that thing that keeps you safe. It keeps you like from, jumping off a cliff or going down a back alley and potentially danger, stuff like that. So that's survival kind of stuff. Whereas your intuition is significantly different. What your intuition is actually, when people say follow your intuition, what are they referring to really? So is it coming from your soul? Your soul's that an essential part of you. Is your intuition, is your soul telling you and guiding you to do something like, personal thing, a life thing, a relationship thing, whatever it might be, health thing, stuff like that? Or is it coming from your higher self? Or is it coming from one of your spirit guides? So most people have between 3 to 5 spirit guides. Is it coming from one of your spirit guides? And if it is, which one of your spirit guides? Which one of your spirit guides is it coming from? Or is it coming from your soul and one of your spirit guides? Or is it coming from your higher self and one of your spirit guides? Or is it coming from, any combination of any of that? And it could be. And so what I teach my students to do is how to dissect. There's a concept that I've created. It's called there's power in specifics. So
Yes.
what happens is when people, don't get me wrong, generalities can be useful in certain circumstances. However, most of the time, actually breaking stuff down and dissecting it and getting the very minute microscopic details about what we're talking about is very, very powerful. So that's why I've been really focusing on how to know where I'm getting the information from and the different components and the sources of this information. So is it coming from my soul, my higher self, or one of my guides? That's your intuition. And so, or a combination of one of those. Whereas instinct is that kind of like that really just raw, like keep me safe kind of thing. Like, oh, make sure I don't go down this back alley, or, maybe take a different way home today because I think something bad's going to happen, to avoid a car accident or something like that. So that's the difference between instinct and intuition. Good question.
Awesome. This is a question I get on a constant basis from my clients. And so I'm going to ask you, I want to hear your answer as well. Can I, the soul of Kevin Hughes, the soul that resides in Kevin Hughes, come back as a butterfly or a dog or
Yeah, I know there's quite a few cultures out there, and that's totally fine if that's someone's belief that this can happen. I'm totally fine with this. What I found is, so I teach my full animal certification workshop, where at the end of it you become a certified animal communicator, and that's after level 3, my expert level. Then you can qualify to take that full weekend certification program. And what we do is very distinct um, exercises and activities that helps you to differentiate between a human soul and an animal soul. So I want to make this very clear. It's not that human souls aren't better or anything like that. Like this whole thing about, oh, we are the dominion and the reign is this, it's a bunch of crock. Like I don't believe in any of that. We're the dominion of this planet and this earth because we're something special. We're not. However, there is a very distinct. So there's 3 realms. There's the astral realm, there's the in-between realm where lost souls are, and then there's the animal spirit realm. So the astral realm is where you go when you cross over and you die, which is also where your soul family resides and loved ones reside when they cross over and things like that. So in my animal communication workshop, because we're working with animals, I get you to we don't just talk about the different kinds of souls, I actually have you experience it. And then I get you to experience the difference between a human soul and an animal soul when they're incarnated, and then also a human soul and an animal soul when they're crossed over into their different realms. In this case, human souls reside in the astral realm, and animal souls reside in the animal spirit realm. And so, is it possible for a human to come back as another animal? I keep getting, and even right now I'm checking, I keep getting no.
no. Yeah.
There is possible where a soul in a spirit form, a human soul, can temporarily come into an animal to kind of like let the humans know, hey, I'm here. Like, one time I had my dad come into my cat. My cat was like, oh, I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, oh, my dad's dad, what are you doing? Like my dad in spirit form, right? But that's not common, and that's very rare. And he was just being funny, trying to get my attention and stuff like that. Really good question. And then I've also had questions on like, so human souls are different categories. We wouldn't go from a human soul to an animal soul, and then the other way around. Like, does a dog come in as a human and then next lifetime, become a cat and stuff like that? The answer is pretty much no.
No. This is one that's always interested me, and I remember learning it in one of your channelings. I'm not sure if it was level 2 or level 3. And you've changed since I've taken your course, even, which was just less than 2 years ago. You've changed your courses.
Yes.
Are we always incarnating on Earth with our family, our spirit family members? Let me rephrase that. Can I incarnate into a family that isn't part of my spirit family? Does that make sense?
Yeah, soul family. Okay, so
yes.
What happens is when we die and we cross over, then we'll go back to the astral realm to be with our soul family. And so each individual, they have their soul families, and sometimes we're part of the same soul family. And then I've had it where, like there's people that are not of my soul family, but I've incarnated with them several times in other lifetimes, including this lifetime. So I've also had some of my students be like, well, nobody in my immediate family is a member of my soul family. So I want to make one thing clear, is that there is a very distinct difference between your earth family and your soul family. People have this weird convoluted kind of thing. Oh, this must be my soul family, my earth family, or why would I, but I've had people where they've incarnated in this lifetime. So just to back up a bit, when we're in the astral realm and we decide that we're going to incarnate, before we come in as a baby, we make certain soul agreements, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes on in the astral realm. I won't get too much into it right now, but there's contracts, deals, agreements. You also, that soul is working with their guides, because yes, souls have guides in the astral realm, and then they're working on, okay, where are they going to incarnate, who's going to be their family, what part of the earth and the planet are they going to incarnate on, what kind of society, what time frame, all that stuff. And then they're born through the womb of the mother, and then when they're born, that doesn't mean that earth family is necessarily members of their soul family, but it's possible as well.
Yes.
So let's say it's a family, I'm just picking up a random example. Let's say it's a family of 4. Maybe one of them is a member of their soul family, or maybe none of them, or maybe 3 of them. Like, there's a lot of possibilities. Or if it's none of them, maybe the reason that they chose that family is because of the society where they're growing up. And then there's other people who are incarnated that is members of their soul family, but not members of the earth family, that they're going to meet along their way, and things like this. So the question I ask my students is like, have you ever bumped into somebody that you've never met before, and then you meet them and you're like, oh my goodness, like I feel like I've known you forever. And if they are members of your soul family, it's because you literally have known them forever, for eons, and you probably incarnated many, many times over many lifetimes. So that's how you kind of know. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like chemistry. Chemistry is different. It's like, you just like have this amazing chemistry. That could be totally different. But where you feel like you've known them forever, even though you just met them, that's a possibility that they're members of your soul family.
Yes. And I've run into that many times, where I've met someone and either I've clicked really, really well with them, or I haven't. And it can work both ways, right?
Yeah, and it's not always good or bad or right or wrong. It's just
No.
some people don't click, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it's a bad, or they're a bad person, or you're a bad, none of that stuff. It's
Exactly. I always use my family as an example. I come from a family of 9. I'm the youngest of 9 kids. And I know for a fact in that family, we're not all part of the same soul family on the other side. It's just a fact. Not bad or good, just a fact.
Yeah.
Right? Don Hobbs has a question. I wonder if our village comes and returns to our pool of soul family. I'm not sure what. I wonder if our village comes and returns to our pool of soul families. Do we need her to reword that question?
Yeah, maybe she can ask in a different way.
Yeah.
Don, really, really good question. I do want to answer that. I just, you can ask that same question in a different way. That'd be great. But yeah, please do, and then we'll get back to it.
Shelley Somerville Wasler wants to ask, do you get to see your human family soul once we have all passed, if you're not in the same soul family? Oh, I see what she's asking.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, like we can tune into anybody's soul, no matter whether they're members of a soul family or not. And when we do this in the channeling level 3, the expert level, where I teach medical mediumship, and I teach people how to channel and tune into the soul of their classmates, and then they can actually do past life regression, like actually tune into past lives that those classmates have had, and things like that, and readings of other souls. And let me say it another way, is that a soul is a soul is a soul is a soul. So it's anybody can tune into anybody's soul, with permission. Of course, we cover all permission stuff like that. But once you get the permission and everything's clear and a go, then you can. It's irrelevant whether they're a member of the soul family or not.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, did I answer that question?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
I think so.
Another one that I get a lot is about dreams. If you have the same dream over and over and over again, constantly, like what I'll call reoccurring dreams, what does it mean? Or is there a meaning to it?
So I want to make something very clear, and we do cover things like dream walking, dream interpretation, astral traveling, all that in level 3, the expert level. The reason I save it for that is that's pretty advanced stuff.
Yeah.
Just to kind of talk about reoccurring dreams is that, first of all, not all dreams have meaning. Not all dreams, like people want to like. Sometimes it's just you trying to figure things out. Sometimes it's your body trying to put pieces together or take pieces apart or whatever, and just kind of process stuff or life or whatever. So people always want to read something to something, and sometimes it's the case, but sometimes it's not. With reoccurring dreams, oftentimes that is a very strong pattern. So, for example, I had nightmares as a child all the way for like probably 10 years where I was constantly like in a dungeon and I was being tortured and things like that. And I know for sure that and even now I'm checking, that was definitely past life where I was getting that over and over and over again, and I had not cleared that. And that's where our past lives can really affect our present lives. So those are warnings. Like, pay attention to those, write those down. And then if you have any healing modalities, try to heal them yourself. And if you don't, reach out to a healer to help heal that. In that case, I did actually end up healing that one on my own for the most part, but there were some healers along the way that also helped with some residual from that. The other thing also to watch for is that so most of the time reoccurring dreams are from past lives, not always, but that's what they're often they're coming up to be healed and cleared, depending what it is. And it could be positive ones as well, and then those ones you embrace. But I had another reoccurring dream that was going on again for years where I was constantly being chased by like an authority figure. So someone like a police officer or a security guard or someone like in an authority kind of position. And I was always trying to hide and run and hide and run. And then after about 8 to 10 years of this happening over and over and over again, I finally got fed up and I'm like, no, stop. I'm not running anymore. And I faced it. And then after that, it started to subside. And then I had to do that a few more times. So I had to, like in my dream, I would literally I'm not running anymore, because I would be running like from this, and then I'd wake up in a complete sweat. Like I was actually really
Wow.
it was very visceral. And again, that was past lives where I was running. I keep getting like military situations and things like that.
Well, it's funny because I had one. I'm not going to go into what it was, but it was reoccurring to where I would scream, and my girlfriend Ellison would actually be afraid that I would strike out. That's how mad I was.
Oh wow.
I do not have the ability to do that kind of clearing or healing. I went to somebody, and it's important to note, and I want you to touch on this, Ken, is when we talk about clearing, are we talking about you delete that lifetime? How do you clear a past life?
Yeah, so just to give some of the folks watching, I do have like tons of stacks of certificates and diplomas from lots of different healers, trainers, retreats. I've taken like so many different modalities, counseling, training, therapy, life skills coaching, on and on and on, and all sorts of different healing modalities, spiritual, non-spiritual, behavioral change stuff. So there's using a multiple of those methods. That's why I'm a big fan of people trying to get like lots and lots of training from lots of different modalities, because then when these things come up, then you can, working with your spirit guides, you can say, okay, which one of these modalities do I need to heal? Like in this case, past life stuff that's affecting me in my dreams or this current lifetime. And then you can draw off of those certain tools. And sometimes it's multifaceted. You need 2 or 3 different kinds, and that's very common. And or you need to go see a spiritual healer, healer that can clear those things. And like for me, I do healing and clearing on a regular basis on myself because I have so many different modalities. And I want to make this very clear. And I also go and see other healers on a
Thank
regular
you.
basis as part of my maintenance and part of my things that surface. And I need it and I know it. And one of the things I really encourage my students is that whenever you go see a healer and clear, like a healer, that you make sure that they're actually doing their own healing work because
Yes.
I've noticed being in this industry for so long that a lot of healers don't actually do any work on themselves, and then over the months and the years that it actually they can become unhealthier. And so I made a commitment early on in my years that when I start this, I'm going to continue doing my healing and clearing along the way as I'm helping others. Yeah,
Really,
and
really
that's
important.
priority has to be no matter what. And even to this day, I still do this on a regular basis.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a great question from Michelle Peters. What does it
Mhm.
mean if you never remember your dream?
Hmm. Yeah. So there's a couple of things there. Um, I am getting some people actually, and this is documented, where they actually don't remember their dreams. So there's, it's just the fact that not everyone remembers their dreams. But I am getting, in her case, in your case, Michelle, that there's like kind of like a block there that can be cleared to help you. It is most people do remember their dreams, but not all people do. And the ones that don't, it could be for various reasons. It could be for just medical reasons, or it could actually be from different kinds of reasons, spiritual reasons. So it's not a blanket answer. It would have to be individualized to that individual as to, oh, in your case,
Yeah.
what's going on with you, and let's figure that out. Let's see what if we can do anything with that around that. Good question.
We have talked about souls. Like we
Mhm.
just throw that word out there. Souls, soul here, soul there. You're a soul, I'm a soul. We got souls over in the astral realm. We got souls in the animal spirit realm. What is a soul? Some people who are tuned in aren't as diving deep into the spirituality as maybe you are or maybe I am. So what is a soul?
Let me clarify real quickly is that there's a difference between a spirit and a soul. So a spirit, like if someone says, "Oh, they're in good spirits" or whatever, like there's certain words that have multiple meanings, and the word spirit. But when someone's talking about like there's a spirit in the room, something like that. So what they're talking about is the essence of the overall spirit, right? So or Kevin has a positive high vibe spirit, something like that. So that's talking about
Yeah.
its overall essence. Whereas your soul is a very individual component of you. So your soul is that part of you that is the most essential part. It's kind of like that spark, that part of you that makes you alive. And like when how they do cryogenics with certain people are like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get either my body frozen or my head frozen, hoping that in someday in the future, in a few hundred years or 1,000 years or whatever, 10,000 years, that someday hopefully scientists will figure out how to bring that body back to life and bring me back to life. That's kind of what they're hoping. And I don't say it's not going to happen. It might happen, it might not. But I think one of the biggest things that scientists are going to struggle with is how are they going to bring that soul back into that body. So they might bring the body back, and the body might be breathing and things like that, and the neurons firing and everything's fine. But the soul is that part that contains like the person's personality, their attributes, their characteristics. That's what keeps the machine or the meat suit or the shell alive, and it gives us the animation and all that stuff.
Yes.
So without the soul, if the soul, like right now, if my soul were to just leave my body, my body would just collapse and it would die because there's no soul in there to keep it animated, to give it its personality and who it is as at the essence of what it is. So that is your soul is the most important component of you, and that's why in my channeling level 1 we take so much time to really get to know your soul and who it is, and then we do this more throughout levels 2 and 3, get to know your soul on a more intimate, deeper basis. And also, when you get to know your soul really well, then it helps you to know other people who are living, and oh, if I have a soul, then they have a soul. You want to hear something really cool, Kevin?
Yes.
Could you imagine, could you imagine you're walking down the street in some urban center and there's people all over walking around, and you don't see, their bodies, and you don't see, who, like their face and their size and their culture and their heritage and all that. All you see is these beautiful, wonderful, amazing, beautiful souls doing the best they can, living their life in this experience right now, who they are, and that's all you see. And then you might have interactions with them. Some might do something, jerk thing or whatever, but you still see their beautiful soul and you look past that. Or all your biases and prejudices about culture, or the, vanity, the looks, all that just dissipate because you don't see any of that. You see their soul for who they really are, and
What a perfect world it would be.
so beautiful. Yeah. And really, that's all we are. And that's why I don't get caught up on my looks and who I am. Okay, I'm a white dude with, blonde hair, all this, but who cares? Because I've been pretty much every race, every culture in the history of the world. Like throughout my lifetimes, my many, many lifetimes, I've incarnated on this planet Earth. So how could I ever possibly be racist against another culture or another, race?
Because
How
you
could
were
I?
them.
Yeah,
Your
I
soul
was
was
them.
them.
And I would be racist against myself. Or sexism, like this whole thing with, like, like how could somebody treat a female differently
Oh,
than a male? Like, I mean, that's just mind boggling to me, because how many lifetimes have I been a female and discriminated against because I was a female? And that just makes no sense for me. And this
I'm
is why,
glad you brought that up. A soul, there isn't male souls, female souls. Souls can be, when you incarnate, they can be male or female.
yeah. And that's one of the things I ask my students, and when I take them through that past life regression is, were you a female or a male in that lifetime? And they're like, oh, maybe in one example, I was a male. And I'm like, yeah. So, because the discrimination can work both ways, where females are discriminatory against men. All men are like this. And then it also can work the other way, where men are, jerks towards women because they're female. And I'm like, that's, both ways are ridiculous, because we've been both sexes many times,
Over
chatted
and
about
over
it
again.
many times, yeah, over and over. So it makes no sense. And to be racist against somebody against a different culture or ethnic background makes no sense either, because chances are we've all been those races before.
Ah, man, wouldn't this be a great world if all racism and any type of racism was gone from the world with a snap of
So
the fingers?
my mission statement is to make this world a better place by teaching people how to channel. Because think about it. Imagine how much better this world would be if everyone knew how to channel even just a little bit. And this is like these realizations about, oh yeah, I've been another soul. Oh yeah, I've been another race. Oh yeah, I've been another gender. And oh yeah, like there is life after death, and I don't have to fear death. And this, like, just how life changing these concepts. I'm not going to call them simple, because I understand, like, people still have their hangups and things like that. But a lot of this stuff will fade, and then we can live a healthier life, hopefully, by
Exactly.
with channeling. Like, how cool is this?
Tracy Morgan wants you to know that she loves the fact that you go for healing. She stated this about a year ago. She goes for healing once a month.
Yeah.
So, and Dawn Hobbs agrees with your last statement with
Please
a
do
little
your
heart.
healing, everyone. Please
Yeah,
do.
exactly. Now, here's a great question. For those of us who watch all these ghost shows on TV and are fascinated with ghost shows, this is where I heard this term first.
Yeah.
Residual energy. What is it?
So what they're referring to, so I watch a lot of these ghost shows. I watch them because if I come across what's called a lost soul, those are souls who haven't fully crossed over the afterrealm, then I cross them over, so that oh, there's a haunting here. Well, not anymore, and I just cross over those souls.
Literally, people won't let Ken go to haunted houses.
No, no. I had one of my students at one time reach out and say, well, I was invited to go to this haunted house for Halloween, and I don't know if I should go. I'm like, yeah, totally go. And if you come across anything, just cross it over. And I'm like, I'm not into the business of making money off these. Like, these are real souls. They're like you and
Yes.
I, and I have the compassion and care for them, so I want them to cross over. So what we people are oftentimes when they say, "Oh, there's an entity in the vicinity," and they have those like I'm holding my hand up like I have a sensor, that
Gauge. Yeah.
detecting them. So what they're talking about an entity is usually a lost soul, is what you see on those ghost hunter kind of shows, and that's the so I said earlier there's three realms. There's the astral realm, there's the animal spirit realm, and then the in between realm, which is where lost souls are. Why lost souls become a lost soul? That's a whole different topic. But let's say
We'll get
in the
into that
ideal
next week.
world, the all souls would fully cross over to the astral realm to get the healing they need, to get the care that they need, and to be with their soul family and things like that, and the processing. So what can happen is if a lost soul is wandering around and then it sees a incarnated person, it can actually affect them detrimentally. Sometimes some lost souls are um, like benign and there's nothing wrong with them. Some are more on the malicious, like the malintent kind of side and purposely, but most are somewhere in the middle, and it could vary depending. So let's say one of those lost souls does affect you or somebody and then I teach my students very powerful techniques on how to detach that lost soul and then cross them over to the astral to be with their soul family. But even after that's done, sometimes there's what's called residual energy that can still be affecting them for weeks or months. So oftentimes my clients will come to me and I'll be like, maybe that lost soul isn't affecting them anymore, but I'll be able to scan them again. That's my medical mediumship techniques that I developed that I teach in level 3. And then I'll be able to scan them and say, oh, yeah, you still have some residual going on. So it could be their auric field has been compromised. It could be that there's still like, I call it like static distortion interference that's still affecting them in their auric field or in their vicinity, like around them. There could be potential tethers, energetic tethers or cords or psychic links or other factors that are still connected with that lost soul, or that lost soul could affect. We have many different non-physical components, and those non-physical components sometimes need some tune-up or some repair or clearing, on and on and on and on, including like your chakras and things like that. So it's
Now,
a pretty sophisticated question, but it
yeah,
varies depending on, and it doesn't happen that often. Like I don't want people to get all fearful and
yeah.
afraid, but it does happen. It does.
And
It does.
99.9% of the time, or is it true that they're not harmful?
Yeah, most of the time they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're benign. Like I've had like a little boy come up to me one time and they're like, "Oh," and I'm like, "What's going on?" It's like I'm lost, literally a lost soul, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, no problem." And there was no malintent with that little boy, for
No,
example.
exactly. I don't know if you can answer this in a minute or less. Why do our guides let us be lost souls? Why don't they cross us over when we are crossing over?
Yeah, that's one I
If
haven't
you,
been able to fully figure out. So the question that I've been asked many times is why are there even lost souls at all? Like why
yeah,
don't what's and I have not been able to figure that out fully. All I know is it is what it is. Is there's sometimes there's lost souls in that in between realm. Why, how that happens, why our guides don't do it and cross them over. I keep getting even right now that they just don't have because like they don't have the abilities to. But so it's a little bit beyond the scope of this like questioning. But basically, when we're in the astral realm in spirit form, and then we incarnate, we need all our aspects with us. And then when we
yes,
die and we cross over, we shed a lot of those aspects that we don't need anymore, and then we go back to spirit form and back to the astral realm to be with our soul family. But while we're incarnated and we have all these aspects, we're actually really powerful. And in a lot of cases, we're more powerful than when we're in spirit form because we're
perfect.
in 3D and we have all these aspects. So we can actually don't ever underestimate or deny, or what's the word called, basically neglect, or not neglect, but underestimate the power that you have as an incarnate human. You are super powerful, and yeah, always just know that. Like, and there's souls that want to incarnate because they understand this, how much evolution and growth and power and strength that we can have in a good way in incarnated form.
Awesome. What a great hour, Ken. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. One last, if you can please tell people if they're interested in learning how to channel, where's the best way? Where's the best place they can find a Ken Lewicki course?
Really simple, channelinginc.com. The name of my company is called Channeling Incorporated. So channelinginc.com. If you go there and you look, I'm on all the social medias as well. You'll see all my events. I do, channeling level 1, my intro workshops, my animal communication, and Spirit Expo I have here in Canmore on July 2nd from 10 to 4 at the Canmore Opera House. Like all those things are listed there. So please go check it out. Like have channelinginc.com. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and make sure you tune in. Set your alarm, set your schedule for next Wednesday. So this is the fourth Wednesday every single month from 7 to 8 Mountain Time. Set your time zone. Make sure you tune in.
It's
And
going to
have
be a
your questions
blast.
ready.
Every week it's going to be different questions.
Every month, yeah.
Every month. Sorry, I said every week. Every month is going to be a different questions.
Yeah, I'm super
Awesome.
excited. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and make sure, please feel free to message me or go to my website, sign up for my workshops. I keep myself available, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Awesome. Until next month, take care.
Spirituality.